list. So we have, and I did mention, didn't I, that there is soon to be a Sir joining that list. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, nonetheless. Congratulations, Jacob. Sir Jacob, soon to be. How do you feel?
Thank you so much. Well, I'm obviously delighted and very honoured and flattered that Boris Johnson put me on his list.
And why do you think you did make that cut, so to speak?
Well, resignation honours are political honours given to people who have supported an outgoing Prime Minister. It's, in a way, in normal circumstances, the last opportunity for a politician who has reached the top of the pile to thank those people who've helped him along the way. And Boris Johnson has been very generous in including me on that list.
And what would you say to the critics? Because obviously, Jacob, there's been lots of conversation about whether or not this list should even have been honoured in the first place. What would you say to those critics?
Well, I think they misunderstand what the honours system is for, that it is there to reward people who have been involved in political and public life. There are many honours that are still given out automatically to people like judges to recognise that they are involved in the nation, and an outgoing Prime Minister has done a great service to the country, whether you agree with his politics or not. Being Prime Minister is a very important role, it's a very hard-working role, and that for a Prime Minister to be able to say thank you to those people who have helped make his job a little bit easier is, I think, perfectly reasonable.
And what do you think? Is a lot of people have actually flagged that some of the people that were criticised for being involved in what is now become known as Partygate, etc., those people have made that list as well. So Martin Reynolds, for example, being one. Of course, there are others. What would you say to that criticism?
I would say that Tony Blair is a Knight of the Garter, and that people who are involved in political life don't get everything right. They inevitably make mistakes. But that an honour is to recognise their overall contribution both to service of the country, and the individual you mentioned worked extremely hard in his role as Private Secretary to the Prime Minister, would have spent many hours devoted to the public service. I think it's a perfectly reasonable recognition of his overall service. That's not denying that in one email he may have made a mistake.
Someone else who worked very hard, Nadine Dorries, quite surprisingly, resigned with immediate effect about an hour or so before this list became public. She, of course, wasn't on it. Should she have been on that list?
Well, this is the list drawn up by Boris Johnson, not by me, and approved by the King. I understand from what I've read in the newspapers that there's been talk about some of the peerages, and there are issues relating to the advisory committee. I don't think there was any real problem with announcing peerages in advance. That if you take Harold Macmillan, he was first offered his peerage when he resigned as Prime Minister, and then finally indicated that he would accept it about 20 years later. So the idea that peerages are always given when first offered isn't actually true.
And Nadine actually did an interview this afternoon, and among the things that she said, she was saying that she would have been a fantastic addition to the House of Lords, not least because of her backstory, coming from a very poor area, achieving lots of different things in commerce, in politics, etc. She was suggesting, in fact, she made it quite clear, that one of the reasons she feels that she isn't now going to be in the House of Lords is because she didn't go to Oxford and Cambridge. Do you think there's any truth to perhaps the suggestion that it's a class thing, that if you are basic working class, someone that comes from the basics in life, that you won't ever make it to the House of Lords?
I hope not. I hope we're a more meritocratic society than that, but I certainly think that Nadine would be a wonderful member of the House of Lords. She is a fantastic politician, a feisty individual, somebody who makes her views known to all and sundry, and is a very thoughtful, capable individual. I'm very pro Nadine, and I think she makes an addition to any assembly that she is part of.
And Jacob, we are all familiar, will remember, many of us, the interview that you once did. A little boy in the back of your dad's car. I think you were reading the Financial Times.
Nobody remembers that. Nobody remembers that.
We do. And I wonder, you were saying you had these ambitions.
You're too
to be
young.
Chancellor.
You can't possibly have seen it.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised because one of my panel as well, she brought it up. She's even younger than me. She can remember it. And I wonder, what would young Jacob make of this? Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Well, I mean, look, one of the reasons I'm delighted is that when I was a child, my father got awarded a knighthood at about the same age as I now am. And I remember that it was exciting as his son then, and now I've managed to achieve something in line with my father, and I must confess that that is something that, looking back at my younger self, I didn't think I'd have much opportunity of doing. So I'm obviously very pleased.
And has this inspired your children then, the way it's inspired you when it happened to your father?
I don't know, one of them's running about just off camera. I probably shouldn't. He's disappeared. Otherwise, I'd invite him over, and he could probably be delighted to tell you. But he's
I'd love to hear from him what he thinks to his daddy receiving this. I'd be fascinated. But if he's too busy playing, then what can I do? I'm astonished, quite frankly. He's not inside, Jacob, watching Jubes and Co. What are you all thinking?
Well, I'm sorry about that. Yes, but he's just back from playing cricket. So cricket is a competition with all the best things.
Well, I'll let you off and you can all watch it on catch-up. But for now, thank you very much, Jacob Rees-Mogg.